the secret family of Jesus. Imagine everything you thought you knew about Jesus and his family wasn't the whole story. Picture a hidden chapter, buried for over 2,000 years, that could change everything you believe. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on secrets the church may have hidden. Secrets that reveal Jesus' true family and the real figures behind his story. By the end of this video, you might see Christianity in a completely different light. Let's start with a simple question. Did Jesus have brothers and sisters? In the Bible, some verses mention them directly. In Matthew 13 verses 55 to 56, people in Jesus' hometown say, "Isn't this the carpenter's son? Isn't his mother's name Mary? And aren't his brothers James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas? Aren't all his sisters with us?" Right there, it suggests Jesus had at least 4 brothers and more than one sister. Yet, why is this not widely known? For centuries, the church has emphasized that Mary, the mother of Jesus, was a perpetual virgin. This belief became central to church doctrine. But if Jesus had siblings, how does that fit? Some argue these brothers and sisters were actually cousins or children from a previous marriage of Joseph. But here's the catch. When you look at the original Greek texts, the words used for brother and sister generally refer to actual siblings. It's possible that Jesus had a larger family than we've been led to believe. Now, let's dive into one of the most misunderstood figures in the Bible, Mary Magdalene. Most of us have been taught that she was a repentant prostitute, a woman saved by Jesus. But here's a shocker. The Bible never calls her a prostitute. In Luke 8 verse 2, she is described as a woman from whom 7 demons were cast out. She was one of Jesus' closest followers, standing by him during the crucifixion and being the first to witness his resurrection. But the real story goes much deeper. There's an ancient text called the Gospel of Mary, which didn't make it into the Bible. It portrays Mary Magdalene not as a sinner, but as a spiritual leader, someone who had a unique understanding of Jesus' teachings. This gospel even shows her as someone the other disciples, including Peter, sought guidance from. Why was this text hidden away for centuries? The early church was built on male authority, and a strong, influential female figure like Mary Magdalene didn't fit the narrative they wanted to promote. So, her story was twisted, her role downplayed, and her reputation tarnished. After Jesus' death, who do you think took over leadership among his followers? Most of us are taught that it was Peter or Paul. But according to the book of Acts, it was actually James, the brother of Jesus, who led the early Christian community in Jerusalem. In Acts 15, we see James presiding over a major council to decide whether non-Jewish people could join the church without following Jewish laws. Even Paul, who is often seen as the face of early Christianity, referred to James as a pillar of the church in Galatians 2 verse 9. But why don't we hear more about James today? Because as Paul's influence grew, the teachings and leadership of Jesus' family, especially James, were pushed to the background. Paul's vision of Christianity was more appealing to the Roman world, focusing on faith alone rather than the Jewish roots and practical teachings emphasized by Jesus' own family. As the church spread through the Roman Empire, it needed a unified message, and James' leadership didn't fit into that new direction. And what about John the Baptist? Most people know him as the one who baptized Jesus. But here's something most don't realize. John and Jesus were actually related. In the Gospel of Luke, it's mentioned that Elizabeth, John's mother, was a relative of Mary, the mother of Jesus. This means Jesus and John were likely cousins. Some historians even believe that Jesus began his ministry as a follower of John. But as the early church grew, it became important to highlight Jesus as the sole Messiah, pushing John's influence into the background. Imagine if the original followers saw Jesus as continuing John's message rather than starting something entirely new. So, why would the church go to such lengths to erase these family connections? The answer lies in power. After the fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD, the church shifted its center to Rome. To gain a foothold in the Roman Empire, they needed a narrative that would unite diverse people. That's where Paul's teachings came in, emphasizing salvation through faith rather than focusing on the Jewish roots of Jesus' family. Leaders like James, who taught a more practical, community-based faith, were sidelined. In the process, the church erased the original teachings that emphasized action, compassion, and community. Now, what about Mary Magdalene? According to the Gospel of Mary, which was excluded from the Bible, she was not just a follower, but possibly Jesus' closest confidant. Some even speculate she was the most trusted disciple, chosen to understand and carry on his teachings. But her influence was too radical for the church leaders of that time. They preferred to focus on male apostles, relegating women to the background. The idea of Mary Magdalene as a powerful figure threatened the male-dominated structure the church wanted to establish. So her role was erased, her story twisted, and she was labeled a fallen woman to undermine her influence. So, what can we learn from this hidden history? For centuries, we've been given a version of Christianity that was designed to control, convert, and conform. But when we peel back the layers, we find a story rooted in family, in community, in action, not just blind faith. Jesus' original teachings were about living a life that reflects compassion, understanding, and genuine love for one another. But somewhere along the way, those teachings were replaced with rituals, doctrines, and the focus on salvation after death, rather than living righteously in the here and now. Imagine how different Christianity could have been if it had embraced the teachings of James, Mary Magdalene, and John the Baptist, leaders who knew Jesus personally, who lived and walked with him. This isn't just about uncovering lost history. It's about rediscovering the message that was buried, one that emphasizes action over words, compassion over conversion, and community over hierarchy. Maybe it's time we rethink what it truly means to follow Jesus, not as an unreachable figure, but as a teacher, a brother, and a leader whose real legacy was overshadowed by the politics of the early church. So, what do you think? Does knowing this hidden history change the way you see the story of Jesus? Let us know in the comments. And if you found this exploration eye-opening, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into history's hidden stories. Because sometimes, the real story is the one that's been hidden in plain sight, waiting for us to uncover it.